Infinity Ward and Raven Software have finally acknowledged that Call of Duty servers are a problem in Warzone 2 and Modern Warfare 2. After releasing my video and finally seeing some conversations happening in the community, it's officially on their Trello board that the servers are not working as intended. But ever since releasing that video, there have been some really concerning clips online, and even some really concerning things that have happened to me in games of Warzone 2 that I think pose a really big problem for this game. And I've decided to talk about them in this video today. Now, before I begin this video, it's worth mentioning that these are observations, and correlation does not necessarily equal causation. Now, there are methods for me to get some finite numbers on how things are going, and methods for me to actually establish what's going on with Warzone 2 servers. And whilst a lot of these are legitimate network monitoring applications, or applications that tend to understand how your connection is working with other servers, they can in some instances be used for malicious means and are 100% detected by anti-cheats. Whilst I won't bore you with the details, the easiest way of understanding server information using pieces of software is not something you can do in Warzone 2 without risking a ban. Ricochet Anti-Cheat is capable of detecting that software, and Warzone 2 as an application actually kills itself on computers if it sees it running. While I know that this is in the interests of community and in the interests of explaining things to the Warzone 2 community and those of you watching at home, there are some lines that I won't cross, and that's definitely one of them. I enjoy creating content for Warzone 2, I enjoy competing in Warzone 2, and any association with anything that could potentially get me banned is not a risk I'm willing to take because this is my livelihood. So let's talk about the server situation in Warzone 2. And one of the most common comments I got on my original video was people talking about people using a lag switch cheat in order to clear out lobbies. And whilst I was skeptical about this and I did lots of research at the time and couldn't find any real leads on it, it is actually true. And I've actually witnessed it for myself. I was recently in a Warzone 2 lobby where a server was utterly unplayable for a good percentage of the game until someone in that server got banned. And when they were banned live in the server and kicked out from the game, the server started to regain its health and no longer was lagging. And the reason I didn't turn up any information or research from the first time I decided to find out if cheaters were capable of doing this is because they're hiding it, because they don't want you to know that they're doing it. Cheating in a video game is serious, and many lawsuits have been made by Activision recently to a number of cheat providers, proving that they're very much willing to sue these guys out of existence. However, when you attack a server, be it for a video game or for any other purpose, chances are you're probably violating a lot of laws in any given country. But on top of that, if you're a cheat provider who's just trying to get away with things and make some easy cash, the last thing you want is the legal team of Activision veering down on you because you're attacking their servers. Almost every mention of lag switching, any kind of use of cheats to lag servers, has been erased from the internet, from these forums, from public discussions, from advertising boards. Because if it's found that they're doing this, there is a much larger legal precedent for someone like Activision to get involved, not only at a legal level of suing these people, but also to some extent a criminal level. In a similar vein to how lots of other hackers in the past have been completely legally and/or judicially destroyed for DDoSing servers like PlayStation, Xbox, so on and so forth. But this is where things start to get a little bit weird, because it is entirely possible that cheaters are using DDoS attacks or overwhelm attacks to try and weaken servers, get players to quit or leave, or crash entire lobbies. That is 100% possible. But the big question that I have about all of this is why is it so easy for them? Because any average dedicated server setup system should have mitigations in place to stop a DDoS attack from occurring, or at least detect that it's happening in the first place and where it's coming from. And I no longer believe that it's a coincidence that there is a correlation between certain players being banned and/or disconnecting from a server and a server suddenly regaining its health. There is something happening in the Warzone 2 server system, either through cheating, by bad coding, or some sort of network infrastructure fault where individual clients connected to a server are having a huge detrimental impact on the overall performance of that server. Now, part of it, again, I believe is related to cheaters, hackers, and cheat providers, but another part of it I also think is some kind of misconfiguration. I wouldn't be able to tell you what is causing this. It could be the VoIP connection and connecting to a voice over IP server. It could be how that VoIP connection's reacting with the dedicated server. It could be the dedicated server having some coding or misconfiguration. Or it could just be a really bad, really cheap server. There are 101 different things that could be causing this. But for whatever reason, and for why I don't understand, there are a number of clients in the game and a number of people connecting to servers who seemingly have a huge detrimental impact on those servers. Now again, I have said that I do think part of that is related to cheating, but I also think part of it isn't, because I've seen people get disconnected from games, and I've had people send me evidence of people leaving games and suddenly a server seems to return to health. So there's a big mystery around all of that. Part of it I do think is a cheating issue, but another part of it poses 101 questions as to why servers are so unstable. Now the next major point, which is the second of this list, is that the AI in Warzone 2 are 100% a root cause of at least some of the problems in the servers. And I can prove this because of the recent new flag cap control flag. Thank you Raven Software, by the way, for that, because it's not fun and nobody likes it. Now, despite the telemetry information in the game which shows your ping to the server being completely broken at the moment and showing 1 to 2 milliseconds, I have found in the vast majority of my games that when strongholds go live in a Warzone 2 server, the server performance utterly plummets. And it used to plummet before, but it's gotten even worse. Now, these new flag control captures for these strongholds are in some instances spawning up to 6 helicopters of artificial intelligence. I was on one earlier today where 5 helicopters spawned in, and we had something in the region of 30 to 40 artificial intelligence on a single stronghold. So if even half of the number of strongholds in the game are running some sort of flag cap system, there is a good chance that the server could be flooding itself with as many as 40, 60, or 80 artificial intelligence at any given time. Especially if you're like me and you don't even kill them, you just get out of their way, grab your things and leave, and then somebody else runs past that stronghold, it activates again, and suddenly 3 or 4 more helicopters are spawning. And while I don't think this is intended behavior and something that hopefully will be fixed, it definitely proves my point that AI are causing a huge negative server impact in Warzone 2, especially in Battle Royale modes. And even though I don't have the numbers for this because they've busted that information, you can go and play Massive Royale with 150 players who are respawning throughout the majority of the game, meaning that the player count is super large and lots of things are going on with vehicles, explosions, and all of the other important physics elements of the game, and get very minimal lag. But if you go into a regular quads, trios, duos, or solos game, and the AI starts to spawn in on some of these flag cap control areas, it all goes downhill, and the server performance-wise absolutely suffers from it. Now, I don't think the AI have as much as a performance impact as an individual player connecting to the server. But even if you assume that the AI had maybe half the impact of a regular player and 40 of them have spawned, it's the equivalent of adding 20 players to the server and creating more problems. And then again, you have issues like all of the helicopters that spawn in, which all have physics values. You have all of the weapons and loot that they leave on the floor, which all sticks around for a while before it despawns. You have the fact that some of the AI straight up don't despawn and just run around for ages or sit around aimlessly. And then you have the fact that if somebody goes over that stronghold, they all spawn again. I have no doubt in my mind that AI are a huge cause of the server performance impact that we're seeing, and I honestly think at this point we're reaching a point where they should just be disabled from Warzone 2 in the Battle Royale mode. And you can even try this for yourself. Go and play a Massive Royale game and then go and play a regular game, and I guarantee you will have a far smoother experience in all of the Massive Royale games than you will in regular matches of Warzone 2 with AI enabled. Now, this final piece of information is the most wacky piece of information, but I thought I'd include it anyway. Earlier I said that there is a chance that some clients connecting to servers seemingly have a large impact on the performance of that server. And recently, Warzone 2 has been spitting out this error image, where it says a client has been told to disconnect from its own listening server, which implies that the player themselves is actually hosting the server in a peer-to-peer system as opposed to a dedicated server system. I don't think it's possible for Warzone 2 servers to be hosted client-side due to the sheer volume of players, the amount of processing power it would require, and the fact that it would just be a damn right nightmare. But it does beg the question of why this error message is showing. because a client being told to disconnect from its own listening server is an error code for telling somebody to close its own server because there was a problem, implying that the client themselves are the host. Once again, I entirely believe that dedicated servers do exist in Warzone 2 and that they are using dedicated servers simply due to the sheer volume of players, the performance impact it would have, so on and so forth. And this could just be a random error code, which is why I said this is the last wacky piece of information. But it does beg a huge question as to why people are seeing this error code, and why is it exactly that there seems to be players, groups of players, or squads which seem to have a performance impact on servers. Now I'm going to chalk this one up to just being a random error code, because we know that these dedicated servers exist, we know where they exist, and we know where and who should be connecting to them. But the big problem I'm seeing here is that I think these servers are really cheap. Some of them seemingly not even being able to handle basic DDoS mitigations against certain attacks. And I also think that there is a chance that there are multiple games, of course, being hosted on a single dedicated server, and there might be too many of them being hosted on those individual servers, causing these issues to happen. If the servers themselves are cheapish and don't really have a lot of performance power, that would explain a lot. But even if they are high-performance servers, if you load them with multiple instances of Warzone 2 matches playing out, then eventually you might end up reaching a performance ceiling. And if networking-wise, or in terms of performance of AI and in terms of processing all of the things happening in a server, Warzone 2 is super bloated and isn't as streamlined as the developers think it is, then if you have multiple games on a single server, things can go downhill really quickly, because you might be overloading that server really quickly. I'm not somebody who works at the development team, so I don't know all the answers to these things. But I think a serious first step for Warzone 2 would be to disable artificial intelligence across every mode for Warzone 2, leaving only the Battle Royale mode available with AI. Because at this point, I can say with pretty much 100% confidence that the AI in Warzone 2 are a key source for instability across servers. Crashing servers, causing instability for servers, possibly even causing things like memory leaks, which progressively makes the server lose health. But whatever the case, it seems obvious to me with these new flag cap control zones that AI are killing Battle Royale, and they should turn them off until they have a solution for that. Whether it's scaling up the servers that they have, paying for higher performance and pricier ones, or simply slimlining the impact that they're having on the networking in the game. It's worth mentioning with these dedicated servers that there could be instances of Warzone 2 multiplayer and DMZ all being hosted on one individual server. And if AI in Warzone 2, for example, ends up overwhelming that server, then you might end up lagging out connections across every single match that's being hosted in that individual node or cluster. That's about it for this video today, folks, and I'm glad to bring you an update on the situation with Warzone 2 servers. I'm really glad that they finally acknowledged that this is an issue, and I hope we start to see some resolutions before Warzone 2 ranked releases. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like please, let's try and hit 1,000 likes, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.